Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Cedarville Stories podcast. I'm Mark Weinstein, and today I'm talking with Dr. Lilite, professor of music at Cedarville University. Dr. Lilite's journey is one of inspiration, having grown up in a poor section of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and graduating from one of the most prestigious music schools in the United States. At the heart of today's program is his simple but profound conviction that hope makes one live. So let's go to my conversation with Dr. Lilite on this week's Cedarville Stories podcast. It's great to have you on the podcast, Dr. Lilite. And for those who are regular watchers of this podcast, you know that things look a little different. You know, we're not in the studio. Right now we're in my office because Chris Massa, our producer, is renovating the studio. So once we get back to it, you'll notice a big change and an improvement. And I want to thank Chris for that. But so that's why we're here today. I want to give that as a starting point. But I also want people to get to know you, Lou. You're a gifted musician, a gifted teacher. Outside of those areas, what brings you great joy and satisfaction in life?
Thank you for asking this question, and thanks for having me here. I think what gives me the greatest satisfaction is really to feel like I am doing what the Lord asks me to do and to honor Him in all I do, whether it be cooking a meal for my family or maybe just reading a book or helping a neighbor in need. I think just away from the spotlight or away from just anything that would maybe look successful to another person. I think just knowing that what I'm doing at any given moment is giving glory to the Lord. That's what that's what satisfies me.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's what should satisfy us as believers in Christ. I'm not surprised with your answer, but I had a thought that maybe a grandchild would sneak into the conversation.
Yes, I just recently became a grandfather.
Yeah.
And right now we're going with the word papi, with the stress on the second syllable as my grandfather's name. And a delightful little girl just came into our life in January. And I just find myself just looking at her and loving my own daughter even more through that process of becoming a grandfather. And
they live close, relatively close, right?
Yes. Yeah, pretty close.
So you get to see her as often as you want?
Maybe not as often as I want, but I do get to see her pretty often.
Okay.
And there is one day in particular that's really dedicated to her. So that's really good.
So those who are watching, listening, they'll know as we get going that music is central to who you are, in addition to your faith in Jesus. Where did your love of music come from? How did that develop?
My love for music, I think, first and foremost, came from the Lord. I was also blessed to grow up in a family where my dad was also a musician. He sang a lot. He played the trumpet and also directed choirs as a minister. And so he would sing to us and just brought me in rather early into the world of music. But we didn't have the means to have a piano at home. And so there were many things that I couldn't do. But I did get to sing a lot when I was little, and he taught me how to read music. But it wasn't until I turned 13 or so that I was given the opportunity to learn piano, and it just was a match made in heaven. And so I've just been an avid lover and practicer of music ever since.
Yeah. And your sister played a key role in helping you to learn the piano, didn't she, with the camp?
Yes, she really did. My sister Magda, she and I are very close. We're still really, really close. She was a spokesperson of sorts for me when we arrived at the camp. And of course, after the auditions, once they realized I had not yet learned how to play the piano, and there were 80 other students who auditioned for piano. And so it was clear that I wasn't going to be given lessons. But my sister is the one who really spoke on my behalf and convinced the powers that be, so to speak, to grant me 15 minutes of piano lessons. I know nobody really hears of 15-minute lessons, but that's really what I was given. And I took that opportunity and practiced a lot. And I became a music major by the time it was time for me to attend college.
And I've heard you play, so I know you're really gifted there. So music is part of your life. It also is a way for you to see the beauty of God and see how God has taken you through a journey. How would you say music helps you in those areas?
Music in particular, wow, I think I could talk for 5 hours on this. But music really opens my eyes to see the beauty of God and the beauty of nature. You know, how we have the book of nature and the book of scripture. And I do feel like music is a tangible yet immaterial way of seeing the connections between those two books. But for me personally, the role that music played is that it really got me to become one with the purpose that God has for me, by giving me people who are also interested in music and who can keep me accountable in terms of following Christ, in terms of admonishing me to follow Him, and also I think music has been very instrumental in giving me lyrics and verses and rhymes that I can keep pondering, that would then, as the hymn says, that would tune my heart to sing God's praise in whatever I do. So those are just a few ways that I would say that music has been instrumental in my life.
And whether you are in music or something else, the Lord brings something in our lives that allows us to be more in tune with Him, right?
Yes, very much so.
In a recent interview, I heard you bring up the idea or the phrase, hope makes one live. When you hear that, even now, what stirs in your heart and mind as you hear that phrase?
I go right back to being a little boy in a schoolroom in Haiti, where I saw that for the first time. It's a French phrase that says, l'espoir fait vivre. Hope makes one live. So it takes me back there, where that was the first time that I felt like those teachers were providing hope for us, for people who feel like they have been handed the shorter end of the stick, so to speak, and to think that when you have hope, you can be anywhere. You can travel very far. You can dare to transcend where you are. Self-transcendence, I think, is a wonderful thing that music teaches people as well. But I think just thinking of hope in general, and to think that the Word calls our Lord Jesus the blessed hope of glory. So ultimately, that hope that I was taught when I was very young pointed me to the blessed hope of glory, to Christ. So that is one of the amazing things that phrase stirs within me.
So without going into your journey, which we'll get to in a moment, let's take that point, the hope. And when you hear that phrase, even now, decades later, from that little boy, what do you see? What do you experience? Anything different?
Wow. I don't know why I didn't expect that question. What's different about it now is I feel like it still inspires hope within me, even though it's different, because I've already experienced a lot of things that I think as a young boy I never dared to dream. And so I feel like the Lord has already taken me beyond my wildest imagination. And yet, right now, I want that same hope for others who have never experienced it.
Yeah.
And I want that hope for me because I'm still alive. It means that God has even a greater plans for me to accomplish, not necessarily physical material things, but perhaps the Lord intends for me to partner with the Holy Spirit in bringing many, many other sons and daughters into the fold.
So let's bring that into the classroom or even into your private lessons. Do you see an opportunity here at Cedarville in what you do, in your teaching, in your leading, to bring hope to Cedarville college students? Because they're coming from a totally different perspective.
Yes, totally different perspective, and yet it's the same in that we have students who maybe have not experienced the kind of poverty and
Right.
maybe the dire straits that one would look at a Haitian kid and think about, and yet they do come from other deep pockets of need. We have some students. I have some students who deal with, unbearable depression, and bullying, and identity crises and things like that. And so I've been able to interact with these students just as a one-on-one studio teacher. And the hope that we bring is the gospel.
Sure.
Just by being able to talk to them through the different lyrics that they're studying, the different chords that they encounter, the different heights that the songs require and things like that. And to be able to make a connection between those ideas and their lives and what the Lord may have in store for them in the future. So I feel like that's what I'm dealing with on a daily basis, and it brings me great joy to be able to offer that hope to students.
I want to go back briefly into your childhood. You mentioned that you grew up as a pastor's kid in a pastor's home, and curious to know how did that time shape your impression of the importance of being kind, being neighborly? How did that, or did that impact your viewpoint of caring for others?
Very much so. Let me see how many different ways that I can express this. Number one, my parents really understood the necessity for hospitality as a pastor and a pastor's wife, and so we constantly had people in the home, either for a meal or people who would stay for 2 nights or 10. And the other element of that is my parents took in a lot of kids, a lot of other children. And so even though I came from a very large family, it was a much larger family because of the other children that my parents would have for maybe 2 months or for a year or even longer than that. And so I learned by necessity that I needed to be kind, that I needed to be willing to remove my shirt and give it to another person who needed it more than I. I was also taught to go and visit the sick, with my mom in particular, and with the elderly, people who were in need, who couldn't go to church. We would be tasked with taking food to them in a joyful way.
Sure.
So that really trained me to develop eyes to see what was going on around me. And so I was able to then to see it, to practice that same visionary skill at school, and even when I left Haiti, even when I started college, and no matter where I would live, I was trained at a very young age to see what's going on around me.
When did you leave Haiti?
I left in 1995,
Okay.
January of 1995. So that was right before the beginning of the winter semester.
Okay. Do you still have family back there?
I have more distant relatives, but all my siblings, except for two who are deceased, all my siblings are in the United States.
Okay. So when you were sharing your story a little bit ago, what struck me is something that you learn is the importance or understanding human dignity. So let's take that into immigration. So I know your journey in the immigration process was long and challenging and probably frustrating.
Yes.
Can you tell us that story? Because it's fascinating.
Yes. So my parents always schooled us with the importance of integrity and just doing things the right way, at least the right way as far as we could understand it. And so once it became evident that what I wanted to study was music, and we saw that it was impossible for me to reach the level that I needed to reach in Haiti, just because we didn't have those schools
Right.
for music. And so it became evident that I needed to apply for a student visa to enter the United States. And I started that process at the age of 17 after graduating high school. And I tried the first time. I thought it was going to be a very
Easy process.
a very easy process. But that was not the case.
No, it wasn't.
It took me not one, not two, but 13 different applications. So I'm not saying 13 trips to the consulate,
Okay.
but 13 applications.
Okay.
So there were very lengthy processes. There were times that for me to be seen, I needed to arrive outside the building by 5:30 a.m. just to make sure that I would make it in by noon, which is when they would open the doors for us to get in. And so I didn't always get in. But once I did, and sometimes there was one time that I got really, really close and still it didn't work. But after 13 tries, 2.5 years, I was granted that F1 visa and traveled to Los Angeles, California,
Right.
and started at Biola
Right.
Conservatory. So that was wonderful.
So let's go down the college path. So you studied at Biola, you studied at Penn State University, and then the prestigious Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. What a journey for a Haitian boy who lived in poverty to now studying at these good institutions.
Yes.
As an international student, were you experiencing any unusual stress that maybe American students weren't experiencing, or what was it like for you as you were studying in an international culture?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So there were some pretty difficult days for me. Although I must say, just the fact that I was here, there was just this level of gratitude that just buoyed me, I guess, and just kept me going. Yeah. But there were days that it was hard. There were days that I just didn't have enough to eat. And so being financially minded, I remember when I made the decision that, what I need to do is to just pick a 5-meal plan, meaning 5 meals a week.
Wow.
5 meals a week, just to make sure that I could stretch the food, the protein or whatever that I was getting in, that I would stretch it long enough to last me every single week. But so that was hard. And then sometimes homesickness, would be hard, and just learning a new culture and all of that. All of that was hard. But I must stress the sheer fact that I got to study music.
Yeah.
And I was here. I was healthy. That just kept me going despite the hardships. And I'm sure that some American students, they had hardships. Perhaps theirs looked different from mine. But that's what I dealt with.
So as a person who journeyed long to become a student in America, has that shaped the way that you today listen to immigrants? Because immigration's all over the news, unfortunately. Did that help shape how you listen to other people who come from other countries who are living here?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that has done a lot to shape the way that I listen, the way I see, and the way that I interact with talk on immigration. I think we must remember that people come to the United States for different reasons, but I would say one that is pretty common is that there is something good happening here. It's not all good, but there is something really good happening here. And so anytime, and I think that's the rule of excellence, anytime there's excellence in one area, you will attract ants, I guess. So like if there's honey, there will be some sort of attraction there. Yeah. That's just how it is. And so people are interested in immigrating to the United States to better themselves. Now, do they always do it the right way, or do they always get the right understanding of what's going on? No, I think there's a lot of sharing. There's a lot of instruction that should be given on both sides of the equation. But I think it's important to see that there are humans behind that interest, and that a human being wants to become better, wants to self-transcend one way or another, maybe to have better pay, or to have better schools, or to have better food, or to have a better life, or whatever it may be. And so it's helpful to listen and to understand what's behind the interest in coming here. And then maybe if the church could partner with immigrants, and not necessarily in providing things that really aren't theirs to provide, but to provide a listening ear, to provide a helping hand, to provide a better understanding of laws, policies, or how things are done. I think all of that would make the conversation more nuanced and more satisfying.
Sure. You mentioned the word label, and I want to get to that in a moment. But before I go there, I know you spent some time in Springfield with the Haitian population. We have a large Haitian population
Yes.
that's come to Springfield with temporary protected status from the United States government. You don't go as a policy expert. You go as a neighbor.
Yes.
Why is that distinction so important to you?
It's very important to me that, well, number one, because I don't know all the policies.
Sure.
I did not create them. I think there are tons and tons of hours and discussions that went into some of those policies and ideas. So I'm not interested in that. What I am interested in is for people to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like, oh, you heard me? Oh, you too?
Yeah.
And so it's important because I do believe that Christ himself came to us as a neighbor. So by becoming one of us, then he could, not that he didn't understand as God, but as man, he came as a neighbor just to help us navigate through some really thorny things. And so it's the same for me. I go in and I try to understand, like, what's life like for you? Do you understand the concept of a weekend? Like, what is a weekend when you're working really, really, really hard like that? So that's very different. And so a lot of what I do is I just listen. I don't want them to think of me as the other person or the one who's arrived.
Right.
And that just because I currently hold a U.S. passport, that makes me a better human.
Right.
Or a, somewhat superior person. And so that they've taught me a lot of things that I never would have thought about. And so that's what's important to me, just to make sure that I take the time to learn of their specific condition and for them to learn from me, like, what my experience has been.
How have they responded to you as a person who isn't there to give them answers, but is simply there to listen? I would think it has to be more powerful to listen than to provide answers. How have they responded?
For the most part, I usually see huge smiles by the time I leave. And it's gratitude. I would say the first thing, gratitude, and sometimes frustration.
Okay.
I have to admit. Sometimes
because they'd like to be in your shoes?
They'd like to be in my shoes, and they'd like someone to fix
their problems.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that all of them are like that. That's certainly not the case. But I see frustrations sometimes, and then there's a different response from parents as opposed to younger kids or teenagers. So the responses vary, but I would say, like, in general, that there's a sense that, oh wow, there is hope. Someone has done it. And I'm the someone who has done it. And then there are tons of others who have done it. And so it's possible for them. But in general, there's a sense of relief that maybe after a long week or after a long day, that there's someone who's willing to listen.
Yeah.
And I wish I could either clone myself or just bring more people who can speak into the conversation as knowledgeably, I guess, as I.
Well, that's where the church should come in, and cloning you is a great idea, not just because of who you are, but just because of your faith. I think that's a role the church can step into and maybe should step into, but maybe for whatever reason we haven't. Back to labels. So I think in the American culture, it's very easy for us to label people, whether for whatever reason, this person's wealthy, this person's a celebrity, this person's homeless, is not worth our time. What do we lose when we start putting labels on people instead of viewing people as created in the image of God?
Yeah, those labels, other than the label Christ follower or the label Christian.
Sure.
Other than that label, and that is really an identity, not just a label. But I think often labels limit growth. It limits people. It hampers hope even. Because the minute you hear that label, homeless or loser or whatever,
sure,
then it already defines for that person where they should go, how they should live, how far they can go.
In their perspective.
And so, and I think that's where hope comes in. Hope says, no, you don't determine how far you go.
No.
God determines that. And only God can determine it because he is the one who empowers people to change. I mean, that's what Christ offers us. Just come to me.
Right.
You who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And that rest is this idea that, okay, once I'm in him, I can go as far as he wants, as deep as he wants, as wide as he wants. And I can even suffer as much
sure,
as he allows. And so that, I do think that labels are really destructive.
Sure.
We have to be careful when we start limiting people with those labels.
Absolutely. So as Christians, how can we engage in the immigration discussion, or how would you like for us to engage in the immigration discussion?
I think just for us to remember that for us to even be grafted into the family of God, in a way, we have immigrated from the country of Satan, the country of selfishness and self-pursuit, whatever, to the pursuit of Christ. And so in the same way that we need to approach the immigration question with compassion, with openness, with the idea that we don't have it all figured out. It may seem like we do, but we don't. And not that the immigrant has it all figured out either.
No.
They don't. And so to see it as a conversation with a conversation that I'm going to learn something from you, you're going to learn something from me, and then together we're going to learn something from knowledge. Because I think it is Parker Palmer who talks about the third thing. It's so powerful to realize that knowledge exists.
Sure.
You don't have 100% of it. I don't have 100% of it. I do have a perspective. You have one. But knowledge exists. And with the help of the Holy Spirit, if we both approach it with humility and with this willingness to pursue truth, then we're going to learn something that will be beneficial to both of us without demeaning either one of our perspectives. So it's this idea of we get to agree with the truth. We get to agree with God, who ultimately knows it all. And so that's really my recommendation, just for us to not be afraid to not stay in our own little corners, but just to engage, be vulnerable, and be willing to learn something new.
Take that one step further. What's one tangible way that I could reach the immigration population that would serve that role?
I think one thing that you can do is to contact local pastors.
Okay.
So if we're thinking Springfield, since this is so close to us, just to reach out to a local pastor and see, like, what are your needs?
Yeah.
Another one is right here at Cedarville. We have several international students.
We do.
And I know that we do have some resources right here on campus for our international students. So that's wonderful. But one thing that can happen is for families to be willing to host a student on a Sunday for a Sunday meal, and to be interested, if that student is an athlete, to attend one of their games.
Sure, right.
Or if that student is a musician, to attend one of their recitals or concerts, or whatever they do. But to just show interest in one person and to be willing to break bread with that person, that's going to go a long way.
That's great advice. I encourage us to heed that counsel from Lou, and there's always opportunities that we have to reach into the lives of others, whether they're immigrants or they're U.S. citizens. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
People are the same. Lou, we are pretty much out of time, but I want to ask you at least one more question, maybe two. When you think back to that little boy in Haiti and you're seeing those words on the chalkboard, thinking about Springfield and the immigrants there, where do you see hope taking root? Do you see it as possibility here in this area and with immigration?
Yeah, I do see it. I think with each aha moment that someone has in a conversation, that is the beginning of a long journey. There are endless possibilities with each discovery of, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see that. I also see a change in terms of how even people around me are addressing the topic of immigration in 2026 versus in, let's say, July 2024. I see a difference. I see that people are more attuned. Positive.
Okay.
Yeah, positive difference. So I don't think we've figured it out.
No. We have a ways to go.
We do. But I think just like, the concept of the 10,000 hours to become proficient and, in a skill, I think it's the same idea. We have not yet spent 10,000 hours, or we haven't done 10,000 tries of really addressing this. Right. It will get better as we continue, but we must persevere. We must continue.
Final question. We've talked a lot about your life, about immigration, good conversation. When you boil down all that we talked about, or whatever's on your heart, what's one thing you want people to take away from this podcast that will help them and help our country?
I think nothing can help our country more than knowing Jesus Christ. That's the best news that I have for you. And Jesus is the one who can provide the hope that you need. And he provides the hope that the believer needs. So like, just because you have a relationship with Christ, or just because you became a believer, doesn't mean that the journey ends there. Yeah. Every single day you need to come and have a conversation with him. But for you who may not yet be a believer of or a follower of Jesus Christ. That's the hope that I really do believe. He is the one who will bring the unity that we seek, that will bring the understanding, the wisdom. He's the true vision that we need to become even better than what we are now.
Great advice, great podcast. I really am thankful that you were willing to share your story with us on the Cedarville Stories podcast. I wish you the best as you continue to teach our students. And I also look forward to sitting under your leadership as we sing worship songs to Jesus at Patterson Park Church. Thanks for joining me this week on the podcast.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Cedarville Stories podcast, brought to you by Cedarville University. To learn more about Cedarville University, visit our website at cedarville.edu. And be sure to come back next week when we'll share another Cedarville story for God's glory.